The biggest problem with Amazon FBA that everyone overlooks. By the end of this video, you'll know what it is and how to work around it. You'll also know why some people say that Amazon FBA doesn't work. If you're a thinker and serious about this business, please do watch this video to the end because it's going to unearth a lot of the mysteries of a physical product business, particularly those rough times when you think your business isn't working. But this is one that really needs your concentration. So buckle up. If you're new here, a big welcome. My name's Dan Rogers. I aim to turn the complex into simple, sharing online business strategies with you. So don't forget to subscribe. This video is sponsored by Payability, and you're going to see why in a moment. The biggest problem with e-commerce or any physical product business involves cash flow. So what is cash flow? Cash flow refers to the amount of cash and cash equivalents being transferred in and out of your company. Cash received from your sales represents cash inflows. Cash spent on inventory purchases, software tools, services like accountants, and the wages of staff or virtual assistants is cash outflows. And if your cash outflows are greater than the inflows, that is termed negative cash flow. Inversely, if your cash inflows are greater than the outflows, that's positive cash flow. So a company's ability to generate positive cash flows is often strongly related to its profitability. So cash flow itself is not the problem. This is something you manage to keep your business operating. And if you have positive cash flow, it means you have cash available to place reorders and keep your business running. However, physical product businesses experience more pressure in this equation than other businesses at specific points. And when cash flow becomes negative at these specific points in time, this can be called a cash flow pinch. And the main area where this occurs is on the first and sometimes second order of a physical product. So let's use an Amazon FBA example. And in this example, your product's landed cost is $10. That's everything. So please don't comment about shipping duties. You sell the product for $35. Your Amazon referral and FBA fees, all the Amazon fees amount to $10. And that's per unit you sell. And so every time you sell a unit, minus out $10, you are left with $15 profit. Now that's your target profit. It's not often an actual feasible profit because you're going to have other costs like PPC spend. But at $15, that is a 43% profit margin. So with our example in place, here's how this happens. On January 1, you agreed to a $7,000 order, and this covers the full development and shipping of your first order of 700 units. On January 1, you pay the initial 30% before manufacturing, and this amounts to $2,100. 4 weeks later, after manufacturing, you pay the final 70% of $4,900, and the products are shipped to the fulfillment center. It takes 4 weeks to arrive at the center. So your total lead time, that's manufacturing and shipping, getting those goods ready for sale, is 8 weeks or 56 days. And so by March 1, that's 8 weeks later from your initial payment, your product's in and selling to customers, and it sells on average 10 units per day. So with 700 units, you have 70 days of inventory. But 2 weeks later, on March 15th, you realize you have to place an order today, March 15, if you are to stay in stock, because your number of days left selling 10 a day matches your lead time. But at this point, you've only been selling for 15 days. 10 a day, you've sold 150 units. You've also been spending very aggressively to launch the product, and you've only just started to recoup your $10 cost per product during the second week. You get your first Amazon payout, but it only amounts to $750 after they deduct your PPC spend. And because of the startup 2-week phase, you've actually made a loss of $5 per unit you've sold. At this point, you choose to order the same size in terms of your order of 700 units with a view to increase the quantity on the third order. Now the initial 30% down payment to get order 2 going is $2,100, but you've only recouped $750 at this point. So you need an additional $1,350 in order to get the second order into manufacturing. And this is the problem I'm referring to. This is a cash flow pinch where your outflows are going to exceed your inflows, even if temporarily. And as you can expect, some think this means the business has failed. but in fact this is actually very, very normal. As you can see in this example, from 1997, Amazon was in this position up until basically 2003, where they turned profit. But don't worry, yours should be much shorter lived. So how can you plan for this? Well, as I cover in this FBA costs video, the best is a reorder buffer. In other words, you're going to take 30% of your total manufacturing cost on order 1 and you're going to keep that aside. In this case, it would match our initial payment. 30%, which is $2,100. This is an amount you either keep aside or raise while you get your first order moving, but the only purpose of it is to get order 2 into manufacturing. So again, there's 2 ways to do this. Number 1, you might just have the capital available, or it might mean do 500 or 700 units instead of 1,000, because then you have this buffer as well. In other cases, you might not have the capital up front, but you're planning to raise this as you get order 1 going. Now at this point, I know it may seem like you are just continually going to pour money into this business, but that is not the case, as you're going to see in a moment. So let's say you have planned for this buffer and you have that additional $2,100 on the sidelines. You pay that initial 30% on order 2, manufacturing begins. Another 4 weeks later, this is now April 15, the final payment on order 2 is due, and this is $4,900. But by this time, you have been selling order 1 for another 4 weeks. So a total of 6 weeks or 42 days from the beginning, and you've sold 420 units. Now during the first 2 weeks, we weren't profitable. We only got back 750, but in the latter 4 weeks, we've got more reviews at this point. We've optimized a bit more of our PPC. We have higher click-through rates and conversion rates. In these weeks, you gain back your cost per unit, which is $10, and on average, a third of your target profit at $5 per unit. So the cash coming in per unit you sell is $15. So during the later 4 weeks, you brought in an additional $4,200. So overall, you have $4,200 plus $750, you have $4,950. So at this point, your cash flow is slightly positive and you can pay the final amount on order 2. After paying that, your company has $50 in available cash. Order 2 then ships and arrives 4 weeks later. This is now May 15. And by this time, you have sold the last 280 units from order 1. So we've now sold all 700 from order 1. Over this time, your keyword ranking has increased, and this means you're making more organic sales than PPC or sponsored ad sales, and this has resulted in higher profits. At this point, you're making half your target profit at $7.50 per unit. Of course, you're still recouping your cost, $10, so you're bringing in cash of $17.50 per unit you sell. And so for the last 280 units, you brought in $4,900. Adding that to our existing $50, we have $4,950. Order 2 is now in and begins selling. And a quick side note here, this is why first orders are hardly ever profitable. In this example, what we put into the company, our outflows was $9,100. If we include the reorder buffer, our inflows were $9,850, and that means in total on order 1 we actually just made a profit of $750. But it's very common to break even here or even make a slight loss, and of course of that profit you had to reinvest all of it to keep the business going. But stay with me, because this is where the tide begins to turn. You're now 2 weeks into selling order number 2. This is now June 1st. At this point, you've sold another 140 units, 10 per day, gaining the same $1,750 cash per sale you make, amounting to an additional $2,450 of available cash. And so if we add that available cash to the existing cash, your company now has $7,400. Again, at this point, you need to place order 3 in order to stay in stock. But at this point, because you're gaining more reviews, more trust, and you've also split test your main images, you're seeing 12 sales a day, sometimes 15 sales a day. So you opt for a larger quantity order this time, also to ease your inventory management and how often you have to reorder. So you decide to scale up your order to 1,000 units instead of 700, and the cost per unit, because of a quantity discount, drops to $9.50 instead of $10 per unit. So the total order cost here is $9,500. The initial 30% payment is $2,850, which your company can pay because it has the available cash flow of $7,400. You pay that and manufacturing begins on order 3. Your company is now left with $4,550. 4 weeks later, it is now July 1st and you sold another 280 units, but now you're making $10 profit per unit. That's 2/3 of our target profit, of course gaining back your cost, and so you're bringing in a cash of $20 per unit. And so for those 280 units, you brought in $5,600. At this point, the company has available cash of $10,150. And since this is 4 weeks later, the final payment on order 3 of 70%, amounting to $6,650, is due and your company pays it. Order 3 then ships and is on the way, and the company is left with $3,500 available cash. Another 4 weeks later, order number 3 arrives and it is now August 1. At this point, you've also sold the last 280 units of order 2, but now at $12 profit per unit. It's actually a 34% margin, so it's not at our target yet, but we're slowly creeping up. That's bringing in $22 of cash per unit you sell. Those 280 units bring in $3,360, and adding that to our already available cash, you now have $6,860. Order 3 begins selling, but now with more inventory available, you calculate that you can place the 4th order 3 weeks into selling order number 3, and that would be on August 21st. And over these 3 weeks, you sell your first 210 units of order 3, but now at $13 profit per unit due to higher organic ranking and more reviews. That would be a 37% profit margin at this point, and you're bringing in $23 of cash per unit you sell. Those 210 units bring in $4,830. That puts your company's available cash at $11,690. And on August 21, you place order number 4 of the same size, 1,000 units, and pay the initial payment. And that 30% is $2,850 again. That leaves your company with $8,840 available cash. 4 weeks later, it's now September 21. The final payment is due on order number 4. But at this point, your daily sales on what you've been selling have increased to 12 on average. By this point, you've sold another 320 units at the same profit, bringing in $7,360. Your company's available cash is now $16,200. You pay the 70% final payment on order 4, which amounts to $6,650. After that's paid, order 4 is on the way, and that leaves the company with available cash of $9,550. 4 weeks later, it's now October 21, and order number 4 arrives at the fulfillment center. On average, you're now selling about 15 units per day, and you've almost sold the last 470 units of order 3. You've sold 420 of them at the same 37% profit margin, bringing in $9,660. Your company's available cash is now $19,320. And at this point, your business has been selling for 10 months. Let's summarize this quickly and explain your next options. On order 1, you put 9,100 in and got 9,850 out, a profit of $750. On order 4, you put 9,500 in, but you got 23,000 out. That's a profit of $13,500. On your first sales, you lost $5 per unit, and on your current sales, you make $13 per unit. On average, you spend $2 on PPC advertising per sale you make. So you don't make your full 43% profit margin of $15 per unit. Rather, you make a very healthy 37% profit margin at $13 per unit. You have 1,050 units of inventory on the balance sheet and in and selling. You have 19,320 of available cash. Now with this positive cash flow, you have 4 options, and I do not recommend the last 2, but I've included them to show you the value you've created, because very often that becomes blurred by the reorders. Option 1, this is status quo. Here, you continue to do exactly what you're currently doing, 1,000 quantity orders, and you sell at the same profit margin and repeat. Option 2, this is to scale. Here, you're going to order larger quantity orders to decrease your cost per unit, increasing your profit per unit. This also gives you more available inventory, meaning inventory management is a lot more easy and flexible, You're not having to place orders as frequently. Option 3 is to sell. Now, I really don't recommend selling a young business because you often don't get a very good multiple. But let's say you're now selling 20 units per day, 600 units per month. You make $13 profit per unit you sell, and so your business is making $7,800 in profit per month. Now, FBA businesses sell for a multiple of between 30 and 50x of their monthly profit. So 39x is currently the average, but for a young business, it would be lower. Let's use 30x, 7,800 times 30, and we have $234,000. So roughly, you could sell this business for $200,000, but generally you're going to need at least 12 months of tracked profitable months. And option 4 is to liquidate. And I'm only adding this option to show you the underlying value you have created here. So at this point, if you just let the business sell out of its inventory and pocketed all of the money, you're going to be left with the available cash, which is 19,320. The cash from the sale of current inventory that's about to sell, that's going to bring in 24,150. And so in total, if you just liquidated the business, you could take out 43,470 minus applicable taxes. So you put 9,100 into this business, and you can now take out 43,470. That's an additional $34,000. And in this case, that is an ROI of 378%. And that's not going to happen every time. Some products will not succeed, but this is kind of what you can expect when a product does perform well. But there's two potential problems here. Number one, what if you suddenly began selling 50 units every day and your reorder had to be at least 3,000 units, but with an 8-week lead time, probably more going to be looking at a 4,000 unit order. Now for ordering more, you would get a quantity discount. Let's say it was down to $8.50 per unit, but for 4,000 units, that order is still going to cost you 34 grand, but you only have about 19 grand. Now, while I have personally built up to orders of this size within the business without external funding, I actually think that was a mistake because this can be done a lot quicker and still in a safe manner through other means. And it also does not involve loans. Remember I mentioned payability earlier? Well, this is exactly what they do all day, every day. If you require their services in order to scale like this, they're going to look at your sales history and forecast your future sales. That gives them a big number. They will give you that big number today so that you can use it to scale your business. Then they are going to collect a percentage of your sales over a longer time frame to, of course, get those funds back plus a small fee. This one is called instant advance. Obviously, there is some risk here for payability, and they're going to need to take a good look at your business. So you can apply using the link in the description below. Also, if you do get funded using that link, you can get an additional $250 sign-on bonus. But if you're not at this stage yet, you can also just save that link for when you do need it. Problem number 2. As you can see, timelines in this are very, very tight. And what if you cannot wait for an Amazon payout? You need to pay the supplier today. Well, Payability has another feature whereby they can pay you the amount you have waiting in your seller account balance, less a safety amount just in case you get returns over the next 2 weeks, and a small fee. So you get that right now today instead of waiting. They will then collect the payment that comes out from Amazon in, for example, 2 weeks. And at that point, you'll also get your safety amount back. For example, if there weren't any returns. And this one is called Instant Access. And again, you can find a link to this one in the description below. Lastly, is your cash flow good or bad? You can see on this graph that for small businesses, currently a 65% cash flow margin is very good. 23% is okay, and 12% is very bad. And you can calculate your cash flow margin by simply determining how much cash you get for each sale you make. For example, here we sold a product for $35. That's the sale. But you could also do this monthly. But each time we sell that $35 product, we get back our cost, $10, also our profit of $13. So we get back $23. So you can calculate this by taking your cash divided by the sales times 100. In this case, 23 divided by 35 times 100, and we have 65.7%. And to round things up, I do hope that this gives you guidance on the potential path of a successful product. I think many people actually give up on great products during order 1 or 2, thinking that the business has failed. Meanwhile, they're just experiencing negative cash flow. And if you want to learn about every single cost associated with an FBA business in 2022, wait for this video about to come up in the end screen. Or if you want to learn how to potentially halve your tax bill in a similar video to this one, wait for this video in the end screen. Please drop a comment below on what you thought of this lesson or what your experience has been within the cash flow realm. Drop a like if you did enjoy this video. Remember to subscribe if you want to stay ahead of your competition. But I wish you many sales, and I'll catch you in the next video.